Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the Week in Review. I'm Amanda Vinicky. The mayor says Springfield owes Chicago $1 billion. That's with a B, as in big, dollars.
We have to continue to make sure that the state of Illinois is doing right by the economic engine of the state of Illinois, which is the city of Chicago.
Mayor Brandon Johnson travels to the state capitol to make his case as lawmakers head into the final stretch of the legislative session. President Joe Biden makes a quick stop in Chicago, but 100 days out from the DNC, concerns for him and the city about protests over the ongoing war in Gaza. Meanwhile, transit activists are upset that new leaders of transit agencies don't regularly ride the train.
The governor selected probably the most unique and controversial design. This building, an open, transparent 17-story office building wrapping around this beautiful atrium that's larger than the basketball arena.
One of Chicago's more unique buildings begins its makeover.
And now to our Week in Review panel. Joining us are Sophia Tureen of the Associated Press, our very own Heather Sharon, Haley Bosick, student journalist and editor-in-chief at DePaul University's 14 East magazine, and joining us from Springfield, Jeremy Gorner of the Chicago Tribune. Now let's get to it. Heather, beginning with you, a key city panel advanced. So he's not on this yet, but on the way. This is a pick of Mayor Brandon Johnson to serve on the Regional Transit Authority Board. And this meeting got tense.
It was tense. And usually these appointment hearings are wham bam, thank you ma'am. Everybody is singing Kumbaya and there are puppies and rainbows. This was not what the Reverend Ira Acri faced. He faced deep questions about the massive budget deficit, $730 million facing the Regional Transportation Authority, and what the CTA should look like going forward in this post-pandemic world we all find ourselves in. He struggled to answer those questions, which really brought out sort of real issues with progressive alderpeople.
And said, I believe, that he wasn't even aware that there was this budget gap. I mean, did each of you know that there was a budget gap?
I mean, we're paid to know this.
Yeah,
sort
I
of
guess.
thing, so,
Okay.
Yeah.
But will he be? Is this a paid position?
So he would get a stipend for monthly meetings of $25,000 annually. So this is a 16-member board. The mayor gets to appoint some. The governor gets to appoint some. But this is really going to be the board that's going to shape the future of public transportation going forward. And there are real questions about why Mayor Brandon Johnson picked Reverend Acri to do this job.
So before you go forward, I'm going to get to just that, because in fact the mayor was asked about this by reporters, and Johnson said that he wants appointees at the table who are closest to the problems facing Chicagoans.
I'm putting forth people that have real lived experiences to the challenges that we are experiencing in these particular communities, and I have absolute confidence that his lived experience will help us give a real voice to those families.
Heather, are transit advocates buying that? Did they have absolute confidence?
They do not. And this, I think, is a real problem for the mayor, because the Reverend Acri is well known for his long history in the civil rights movement. He's a close ally of the Reverend Jesse Jackson Jr., who attended the confirmation hearing in a rare move. And this is a real tension between Johnson's progressive base, as well as his strength in the Black community, who really relish these appointments for people of prominence in their community as a way to make sure that Black Chicagoans have a voice on these sort of statewide boards. It's likely to make it through the city council. Nobody wants to get crosswise with Reverend Jesse Jackson Jr., but it is questions about what the mayor is going to do about transportation holistically going forward.
And there are also questions about another appointee who already has made it onto the CTA board. This RTA measure still there. Jeremy, is there anything that you want to add from the Springfield point of view? Because as we'll talk about shortly, this comes as the mayor has his hand out in Springfield, and certainly there is a lot of discussion about transit generally, as you have a measure before lawmakers that would unite the CTA, the RTA, Metra, PACE. I'll bring it into one massive organization.
Right, Amanda. I mean, this legislation comes amid complaints that have just mounted repeatedly over the CTA and their struggles to provide frequent, reliable, and safe service. This came days, too, Amanda, after Governor Pritzker, in a late-night news conference, in Springfield. He called for an evolution of the leadership of CTA. That was kind of taking an indirect dig at CTA President Dorval Carter. Obviously he's come under fire as head of the CTA. He's been there during the Emanuel. He's been there since the Emanuel administration. They faced under his leadership, the agency's faced a range of complaints, including about so-called ghost buses, and trains, long wait times, concerns about personal safety. As part of this, they're facing a fiscal cliff. I mean, Heather was talking about the $730 million budget hole that's emerging with the pandemic funding that's running out. So the idea of this agency is that of this legislation is that it would basically consolidate funding for those three agencies, that you mentioned.
Funding and leadership.
Funding and leadership, yes.
But no movement yet in Springfield, right?
Say that again?
No movement yet.
Yes, no movement yet in Springfield. It's also going to look at, some of these, it's a very complex how people get appointed to these boards too, which was something, I've seen other
complex or just political? I don't know. Is it that complex?
Yeah.
Sophia, you covered politics for a long. Okay, go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, there's a the system, these regional planners have pointed out there's like 47 board members across these agencies appointed by like 21 different elected officials, have hands in appointing people to these boards. So basically what you have there, you have nearly 24 state, suburban, city officials of varying influence on these transit boards. So it could create a lot of confusion at a time where, transit
Who's
in
accountable,
Chicago
basically?
is under a microscope.
Well, Sophia, you've covered politics for a long time, so it's taking a step back from this. Is this just how appointments go? I mean, you think about who's getting chosen to be an ambassador abroad from the federal level. I mean, is this just sort of appointments?
Well, a lot of what Heather was saying, with Ira Acri, for example, I mean, the amount of respect and standing that he has in Chicago among people of faith. With Rainbow Push, he was an early leader all over the city. I mean, there is probably some sense of credibility or something that Brandon Johnson, looking back now on his first year, a lot of ups and downs, he's wanting to create some confidence maybe in certain parts of his base, and maybe this
real experience that he talked about, and truly people that use the system, even if it isn't Reverend Acri himself, that he has a lot of communication and talk with conversations who are just regular folks.
Yeah, and when he gives endorsements during political season for candidates, people listen.
There we go. Haley, before we move on, just anything that you want to add? Do you take the CTA? Do you ride the train or a bus? How's it been going?
Yeah, so as a DePaul student, we all rely on the transit heavily to get from the Lincoln Park to the Loop campus. And I don't think it's a secret. It's, it's not a singular issue. The CTA takes on the homelessness crisis, drug abuse problems, mental health crisis, and as a regular rider, you see that at least once a day. So it's not going to be an easy issue, and I think you're right. It's going to have to be that two-way communication with the regular folks who do ride the CTA.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps that's something that transit activists could have a conversation about in terms of these other issues that Acri might be an expert on. I don't know. Let's move on, though. You just raised Mayor Johnson, who is approaching his year anniversary in office. So we're going to get to his trip to Springfield, but before we go there, how about his trip in City Hall for this past year? Sophia.
Well, right now I think he's really trying to get some good headlines. He's done a blitz of media interviews in a way that I have not seen in this entire year, doing, in which he's talking about, some of the paid leave, and he keeps kind of trying to bring those up. And I think heading into a year, he's got this countdown calendar celebrating that year, marking those accomplishments, and I think trying to really set the stage of Chicago ahead of the DNC.
And Heather, anything that you want to add there? You of course have talked to Johnson about this.
I have. So he's in the midst of, I think, a media blitz is probably a good way to put it. We spent some time talking this week about sort of what has worked and what hasn't worked this year. I think that he is under an immense amount of pressure, and he has been from the second he took office, as a change agent, as the most progressive person ever elected Chicago mayor, and as somebody who's facing real pressure from that base to make significant changes to how the city operates, but also facing real public pointed skepticism from the power brokers of the city, who had, I don't want to say an all access pass to City Hall under Mayor's Emanuel and better access under Lori Lightfoot that they no longer enjoy. And I think that tension has really shaped his first year in office, along with the migrant crisis and the continuing public safety issues. But come on back to the show next week. We'll have some more
on that anniversary. There's a preview. Okay. Now, Johnson, I'm assuming he did not take the Amtrak to get there, but he did, speaking of power brokers, talk with some of them at the state capitol where he visited this past week, and he went after very publicly saying that he owes Chicago $8 billion. Heather, that's a big number.
It is, and to be fair, he's not wrong. Back under former Governor Bruce Rauner, the state changed the way public schools are funded to emphasize the needs for low-income students. Where do low-income students live in Illinois? They live in Chicago, and if you implemented the formula as it was designed, Chicago would get an extra $1 billion to fund its public schools. Now, there hasn't been a lot of pressure for state officials to sort of make good on those promises in recent years because of all of the federal COVID-19 aid. Well, that aid is pretty much gone, so now the rubber is meeting the road, which is why you hear Johnson saying, hey, you basically signed this promissory note to our students, and I am here to collect. Now, this is good politics for him, of course, because he's a former organizer with the Chicago Teachers Union. The Teachers Union wants to see more funding. That makes their contract negotiations, which have just started, perhaps a little bit easier. So it's sort of all of those things. It's interesting to me that the sort of debate has, or sort of the narrative about it has been that the mayor is going to Springfield and sort of asking state officials to write this check, when shouldn't the state want to fund all schools equitably, which is what this formula is designed to do, and they admit that they haven't been and can't afford to do now? That is a significant problem.
So Jeremy, tell me about that. What is the reception like in Springfield? There's a lot there to unpack in terms of both the ratcheting up of money to fulfill that ramp. There is a ramp to meet those education goals, but let's take a step back away from just the education component. What in general was the reception like for the mayor in the Capitol?
Well, he went to the Capitol, to talk with Governor Pritzker and state lawmakers. I mean, it was built to make his pitch for more state funding for critical city operations, including public schools. And he was going to discuss the Bears and the plan for their new stadium. That didn't really happen.
Yeah, he talked about something else. He talked
about like lead service pipe replacement. He talked about stuff that's lesser known, high profile issues. That's what one state lawmaker, how she described it to me. He was asked about the Bears. They had a little discussion about that, and he talked about public funding for schools, but specifics were very few. The meetings were very short. There really wasn't a lot of detail. A lot of it was him just going to Springfield to kind of, maybe perhaps work on relationships with state officials and with lawmakers, because he is going to need all the help he can get. The point about public funding for schools, you talk about the $1 billion. I mean, one criticism Pritzker's faced is that under this 2017 education formula that you were talking about, he's only really put in, the minimum $350 million increase each year, where he's been called upon, at least in the Chicago area, that's not enough money, which is partially where Mayor Johnson is coming from, where he's going to want to see more funding for CPS, but that could be a tall order this year. There's it's almost a $53 billion budget. There's a lot of belt tightening. We talked about the fiscal cliff for the transit funding. We're talking about the migrant funding. There's really a lot on his plate, and so he left Springfield really. There really weren't a lot of specifics out there as to like what got discussed, what got resolved, and we only have 2 weeks left of scheduled session, so we'll see what happens.
So, right, if anything got resolved there, I know I spoke with a legislator who leads some of the education discussions for appropriations who said, there's no way that this $1 billion is going to happen right now. And by the way, there are schools that are lower funded than CPS that in terms of equity. But he said, yeah, maybe we could do some. And then Chicago would be advantaged by any sort of increases that are put toward funding more and giving more to schools. Can I ask, though, Jeremy, as we were talking about, it seems as if the focus was on, replacing lead pipes at daycares, money for a domestic violence hotline. Why not center discussions on schools? And if he was going to go down there? Why shouldn't that have been the main focus?
Well, that's what's very puzzling is that, why go down there in the first place if, we were staking him out all day. He was going from meeting to meeting to meeting, and they didn't really last very long. So clearly, aside from exchanging pleasantries and, getting, not even really scratching the surface, really didn't seem like there was a lot that got done, other than, like I said, just relationship building, because there's a clear dichotomy from when he was first elected, when he came to Springfield last year, to now. Obviously he was in his honeymoon period early on when he was the mayor-elect, and, he had good relationships with some of the legislative leaders because of his prior involvement with the Chicago Teachers Union. But now a year later, when he's mayor, we've seen tensions that he's had with Governor Pritzker over the migrant crisis. They have, obviously they're divided on, the Bears Stadium proposal.
Yeah.
And of course they're obviously divided, appear to be, could be a division on school funding.
And Jeremy, we've got about 10 minutes left here, so I wanted to quickly also touch on the Chicago Teachers Union, because you wrote about that. It's not just a strained relationship with Mayor Johnson. It's also, according to your reporting, his big ally straining its relationships with lawmakers.
Yeah, so on the same day that Mayor Johnson was here, there was a bill that went through committee through Senate committee that would extend a 2-year, it would extend a moratorium on closures of Chicago public schools by 2 years. This was initially a bill that was supposed to protect selective enrollment schools through, preventing a disproportionate funding decrease from them. This was obviously pushed by school choice advocates. Obviously, progressives were upset by this. They also were against this moratorium extension, even though it covered neighborhood schools as well. This is a bill that was, where CTU and Mayor Johnson were vehemently opposed to. It passed 92-8 through the House, which was a big blow for CTU and the mayor. And then it went unopposed through committee on the same day that he was there. So that bill is going to go through the Senate.
He brushed off a suggestion that this was
a full Senate at some point.
Yeah, the mayor brushed off a suggestion that this was a snub, but certainly it is seen within the Capitol as such. Now, as you noted, Jeremy, and we'll be hopefully focusing a lot on this in coming weeks because session is winding up. But I want to move now to you, Haley, because a lot of action in Springfield, but really a lot of action on college campuses across country, including where you are a student, and that is at DePaul. And I understand that this afternoon there were some developments regarding what's going on with encampments and protests over what's happening in Gaza. What is the latest?
Yeah, so this is, I believe, our 11th day at the encampment. 14 East reporters have been there almost every day to cover this. Today, DPU Alerts, the alert system, sent out an email letting us know that everybody, including the encampment protesters, need to leave the quad. It was very vague. And
so we don't know yet if
we
there
can't
are any
speculate.
police?
We can't speculate. I was on my way here, so but it is concerning because not only does DePaul have to worry about its own administration and their frustrations, but the surrounding neighborhood. DePaul is surrounded by Lincoln Park homes, and people all have their separate opinions about what they believe and what they're calling DePaul's liberation zone. So it cannot be up to DePaul if a community member decides to A, call the police on the encampment, or B, call a threat. And it's been clear that something that's really important to DePaul is student safety, but it's been a tension-filled time. DePaul's the last encampment in the Chicago area, so everybody's really feeling that pressure for sure. And it's made up of 8 student organizations, DePaul's Divestment Coalition. It's backed by the student government's president, and it's a powerful force on campus.
So you'll be continuing to cover it.
Yeah.
You noted that this is the last encampment at a campus, because Heather, how does this compare to what students at schools have seen? Talk us about the Art Institute of Chicago, where investigators are actually probing police activity.
Right. So there were a number of different encampments sort of at college campuses across the city. So we saw University of Chicago police remove the encampment from the quad down in Hyde Park. That sort of was not conducted by Chicago police, but then we saw Chicago police remove the encampment at the School of the Art Institute, and there are several officers who are now facing probes for excessive force against the students there.
Well, and this comes, of course, as Chicago is about 100 days out from hosting the Democratic National Convention. So Sophia, What is this saying about how that is going to be handled? An investigation to police? I mean, this is clearly something not just happening in Chicago, but putting a limelight on the CPD, Mayor Johnson.
I think it's setting the stage. I mean, you have so many, the atmosphere out there is so charged, and it's only, I think, energized people to want to protest more. And as this is happening, you're seeing the city denying, protesters permits. They're only allowed to be in certain areas, and the protesters say, well, we're not close enough to the sites. The ACLU has filed a lawsuit. Protesters have filed a lawsuit. So there's kind of, I think, there's a lot of worry out there about,
Are these comparisons to 68?
I mean, right now,
is that fair?
Mayor Johnson is out there saying, I am not the mayor of 1968. He keeps saying it over and over again. And I think there's, I think they don't like that comparison. They don't want to hear it anymore. What the police are saying is they're undergoing all this new training. They've been a little vague about it, but, crowd control. They're pointing at, like, NATO, for example, where they're, largely a lot of outside groups, there were complaints, but I think they're looking at kind of more successful handling of crowds and crowd control.
No, Sophia, I want to stick with you because there's a new lawsuit this week that alleges decades of sex abuse of children who were detained at juvenile detention centers. What does this suit allege, and how could this activity have gone on so long? Because it really covers quite a span.
This week, a lawsuit was filed against the Illinois Department of Corrections and the agency that oversees juvenile detention centers in the state, alleging multiple incidents of sexual abuse against children for over 2 decades. And this lawsuit has 95 different men and women. So it's not a class action, but it's almost a 200-page lawsuit.
Yeah.
At every, there's...
Tell us about some of the activity.
I mean, just, it's basically alleging, it's absolutely a terrible read, but they're alleging, rape of children, abuse, beatings, and these are with people who have power over children who are alleged
detained.
To keep them safe. Yeah, I mean, we're talking chaplains, nurses, doctors, correctional officers, and
any response from the state?
The state so far has said that this happened in previous administrations, and that and that any hint of any staff wrongdoing is investigated thoroughly and fully. But the lawyers who are involved in this case, they filed lawsuits in multiple states, 5-6 states across the country, and they're saying it's systemic. It's the way that these detention centers are set up, and they have hundreds of more people who are alleging abuse, and they're ready to file more lawsuits in Illinois alone.
Wow. And just Heather, briefly, because I don't want to skip when the president comes to the city. That's big news. Why was President Biden here, and why was he here so short?
Well, he was here to raise money because Chicago is sort of the center of his finance operation right now. He was in Wisconsin to sort of talk up his investments and sort of with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. And if you're in Wisconsin, why not jet down to Chicago and go to the Drake Hotel, I believe, and raise what I'm sure is a couple $1 million.
It was, I believe, exactly $2 million,
yeah,
2.5
from his closest friends. We've seen a lot of him, and we've seen a lot of Vice President Harris, and that won't change in the next 100 days before the convention.
Sophia, let's go back to you because we talked about the State House, but actually state government for a long time had a seat here in Chicago that was very recognizable. It looked like a red and blue spaceship plunked downtown. This is, of course, the Thompson Center, designed by late architect Helmut Jahn. Now, what is happening to it, and is it recognizable anymore?
Well, it currently is recognizable, but I must say I also had an office in the press room at the Thompson Center for more than a decade.
So I came to you. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's even among Chicago architecture, it stands out. The 17-story glass atrium with salmon and blue, and it.
But was it time for it to come down?
It was. There was all kinds of issues with it. I mean, heating, cooling, safety, elevators. Panels were falling off. Roaches. Anything you can imagine under the sun was happening there. But the state sold it in a deal. They got $30 million cash. They got another building, and they've moved this, roughly 2,000 state employees to other locations this week. And Google is going to take it over and have thousands of employees there.
And Google's got the money to raid it of roaches and make it pretty.
What they said was they'll keep kind of some of the integrity of the glass structure, which
versus other plans that had called for knocking this down completely.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much for sharing those insights. And we have no roaches here. We are safe and we are clean. We are also out of time. So our thanks to Sophia Tureen, Heather Sharon, Haley Bosick, and to Jeremy Gorner. And we are back to wrap things up right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family. The Polk Brothers Foundation. Additional support is provided by
And that's our show for this Friday night. Don't forget, you can get Chicago Tonight and the Week in Review streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. Now for the Week in Review, I'm Amanda Vinicky. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and good night. And Haley, congratulations to you, by the way, learning that you're going to have the opportunity to continue your journalism career in a master's program. But what has it been like covering these protests as a student journalist?
Yeah, so tensions are full. It's okay that people don't trust us in the media right now. It's not our job to tell them to trust us. It's our job to prove it. So we're doing our best to keep the community members that we serve safe and do our best in ethical reporting. And that means just not helicoptering in and taking the story, but being there. And
the importance
really,
of having students versus folks like me.
Well, it's it's our community too, and we care about it, and we care about what our students care about. Students want to know where their tuition dollars are going, and that's something that matters to a lot of people. So we're here to help people tell their stories, not tell it for them.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, which is proud to honor founder and senior partner Robert Clifford, who has been named in Forbes' 2024 list of America's top 200 lawyers.